Chris, are we ready to go? Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the November 9th, 2020 meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will allow for public comment under Agenda Item 2A, Public Hearing. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, please dial 1-408-650-3123 and enter access code 235-235-861. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. As a preliminary matter, this is Doreen Goodrich, Chair of the Board. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lionel Berthiaume?
Yes.
Daniel Carpenter?
Here.
Tristan La Liberty?
Yes.
Scott Wren?
Yes.
Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Julie Jacobson?
Yes.
Assistant Town Manager CFO Ed Kazanovich?
Yes.
Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Town Assessor Seth Willard?
Here.
Thank you. I also remind people that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone on this call who is also recording this meeting. Seeing none, we will move on. I'd like to remind members that all votes will be done by roll call. The roll call will be done alphabetically. And we will move through those as quickly as we can. Even if it's just moving up an agenda item, we still need to use a roll call vote. We do have a tax classification hearing scheduled for 6:10 p.m., which is too early to open that meeting. So I will entertain a motion to move up agenda item 5A, town manager item, update on the governor's order of COVID-19. Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mr. Wren has a motion. Mr. Berthiaume has seconded by a roll call vote. Mr. Berthiaume?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. La Liberty?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Mrs. Jacobson, we're on town manager items 5A, an update on the governor's order on COVID-19.
Great. Thank you. Through the chair to the members. Thank you. I just wanted to remind the residents and the business community that the town of Auburn does have a COVID-19 website page on our website, auburnguide.com, and we post all of the new and newly released orders and information that comes out of the governor's office and the Department of Public Health on that website. So it's important to know that those resources are there for you. There are links on that website to other resources that you may need. As you probably know, last week, I believe it was on Monday, November 2nd, the Baker-Polito administration announced new measures to curb the increase in the number of COVID cases. And the Massachusetts public health data at that time was indicating that cases were rising in the state, up by about 278%. It's my understanding that as of today, that's about 300%, with hospitalizations up by 150% since Labor Day. So the governor's administration released these new measures to try to curb the rising cases. And these new measures include a stay-at-home advisory, advising that residents in the Commonwealth stay at home between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., as well as revised face coverings order number 55, an early closing and alcohol order number 53, which basically says no alcohol sales after 9:30 p.m. And then a further revised gatherings order number 54. And the reason for the revised gatherings order that the governor's office has released is that a lot of these outbreaks are due to events that have taken place in private homes. So by issuing governor's order number 54, which revises the gatherings order, it reduces the amount of people that you can have inside your home to 10 and outside your private residence to 25. So this is an effort to curb a lot of the private gatherings that are taking place that are leading to the uptick in numbers. Here in Auburn, we posted our numbers the other day, and we have now 315 cases and 36 deaths. And the cases do continue to rise. And again, I just want to make it clear, they're not due to any one particular area or one particular cluster, but they're really spread out amongst a number of households in the community. So household and community cases are on the rise. So again, this information is on our website, and if anyone has any questions, our office is always happy to answer them. And we also refer you to the Division of Public Health in the town. They're doing an outstanding job keeping up with all these orders, implementing them as they get issued. And again, one more got issued yesterday, which really is more of an impact on the business community. And just to make sure that they see it, there is a new revised order, I believe it's number 56, that replaces number 51. But that revised order just ensures that the business community understands that they still have to go back to the workplace safety standards that were issued back in the summer. And so some of the new orders that have been issued really will still go back to that initial workplace safety standard. So if you're curious or wondering how to operate with your own business, it's all on the state's website, and we have links to that. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson, we're at 6:07. If I were to move up agenda item 6B, trunk or treat, are you able to do that in 3 minutes?
Oh, I could do it in one.
All right, so is there a motion to move up agenda item 5B?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Berthium and a motion by Mr. Berthium and a second by Mr. LaLiberte. By a roll call vote, Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yeah.
Mr. LaLiberte,
Yes.
Mr. Wren,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Mrs. Jacobson.
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to thank well, first of all, the Board of Selectmen for voting to support the 2020 trunk or treat event that was held last Saturday evening, October 31st. As you know, I know the chair and the vice chair were both there, and I know all of the board supported it. It was a frigid, cold evening, and we just really want to thank all the volunteers who came out to help. I mean, the volunteers got started around 2 p.m. and the last carload, which is over 425 cars, left around 8 p.m. The operation went really smoothly. We want to thank the business community because many of them donated to the event and had trunks in the event. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen had trunks, as well as the Department of Development and Inspection Services, the fire department, and the DPW had, and they all just had some really great ideas and some great costumes and great trunks. And it was really a fun event. I think we all enjoyed providing a service to the community. And Doreen and Tristan, the people who came through, by the time they got to us, they were just so excited, and the kids were screaming. They'd never seen so much candy. And I think it was a real community effort and a real success. So we really want to thank the Faith Church for allowing us to partner with them, and Cub Scout 53, they did a great job. CERT, I could go on about all the volunteers, but it really does take an army of volunteers to pull off a community event like this. But we figure that if we had maybe up to 425 or so cars, we'd probably service well over 1,200 children, probably over 1,600 people if you count the parents, and many of them we tried to make sure that they got candy too. They deserved it. But again, it was really chilly out there. I think it got down at one point. The chair said, "You realize it's 31 degrees," and that just that made us realize that it really was not the 72 that we had today. That's for sure. So, but for a week we could have had great weather. But it was a really great event. I just want to thank all the members of town administration who participated in this and did all the planning for months. The public health, the town administration. It was a lot of work, but I think it went well. I think it was a successful event. And based on the nice compliments and comments we got from the residents of the community, I do think they appreciated having the town put this on. So we just want to thank all of you as a board for supporting this effort and encouraging us to give a nice, safe alternative to traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating.
Thank you. And Mr. LaLiberty, do you want to say anything about that event on behalf of the board? I know that you had a great time and you were there with us to witness the amazing reactions of the children.
Yeah, I just want to thank town administration for coming up with the idea. It was really nice to actually be able to provide something for the residents. A lot of communities that had to cancel or recommend that people not go forward with traditional trick-or-treating didn't have anything for the residents to participate in. So it's really great that Auburn actually had something for the residents to do and for kids. And they definitely enjoyed it, the ones that came through. Of course, they had the benefit of being in a nice warm car as they came through. But everyone seemed to really enjoy it once they got through to us. I will say, some people said that they wanted to do it again next year, and if that's the case, I'm going to protest against us being near the fire department, because the kids, once they saw that, they didn't care about the candy you were giving them anymore. They were really excited about the fire. But thank you.
Thank you.
It was. So it is now 6:11. Moving on, we have a public hearing for tax classification. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Berthium, a second by Mr. Wren, by a roll call vote. Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. LaLiberty?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So we're now on the tax classification hearing. I just want to give everyone a sense of the format. So what I'll first ask is for the town assessor, Seth Wooler, to do his complete presentation. If members have questions during the presentation, please make a note of it. I think it's best to allow Mr. Wooler to go through his entire presentation. I will then ask town administration, the town manager and assistant town manager CFO, if they have anything else to add. I will then open it up for board questions to either town assessor or town administration. After board questions, I will open it up for public comment. When if someone is here to speak for public comment, I would ask that when you're recognized, you give your name and address. I know this is a tax classification hearing. You can give either your residential or your business address, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. We will then, excuse me, close the public comment portion of the meeting. I will then open it up to board discussion. And after board discussion and any additional comments, we will close the public hearing and move on to the 4 necessary votes that we are required to take this evening. So if everyone could please keep their mics muted until they're recognized. I'm now going to recognize Mr. Willard, who's going to do the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for letting me present the fiscal 2021 classification hearing. I am going to switch to a PowerPoint presentation, so just bear with me, and we will go all the way through, and please hold questions until the end, and we will get started. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Okay, so fiscal year 2021 classification. Can everybody see the PowerPoint? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Introduction. The calculations for the tax rate and other numbers are estimated as of the time of the preparation. There may be additional informational slides included in the handouts that are not part of tonight's presentation. The current shift is at 1.16 for fiscal 2020. The purpose of the classification hearing allows a shift in the tax burden between the property classes. This does not change the total tax levy for the community. It simply determines the share to be borne by each class. What the classification hearing does not do. Tax classification hearing does not determine the tax rate for the town. It only determines the distribution. Classification does not determine how much money can be raised. Town meeting voters determine what the tax levy will be. Your tax rate. The tax levy is determined by town meeting appropriations and expenditures, state and county charges. It is paid for by using town revenues, excise, fees, enterprise, and other available funds, total taxable real estate and personal property, state aid and reimbursements, new growth, debt exclusions, and overrides. The role of the assessor: to value the property for purposes of equitable taxation, administer abatements and exemptions, be a resource to the taxpayers, and explain the classification options to the selectmen. The overview of the revaluation process. Residential properties. Properties are adjusted annually to full and fair market value. Attributes affecting value include style, condition, interior, and exterior features and size. Commercial industrial properties. Values are based on an income approach to value per Department of Revenue requirements. Personal property, net book value minus depreciation. There are 4 votes taken at the classification hearing. First is the residential factor, shifts the tax rate between residential and commercial properties. Second is the open space discount, shifts the tax burden within the residential classes to discount open space. Third is the residential exemption, shifts the burdens within the residential class. And lastly, the small commercial exemption, shifts the burden within the commercial and industrial classes to give a discount to qualified properties. Percent of the levy for 4 property classes as a snapshot of fiscal 2008 versus fiscal 2020. As you can see, in 2020, the residential element comprised 71.84%. In 2008, the residential comprised 73.39%. And if you look at the commercial, the 2020 percentage of the commercial is 17.88, and in 2008, it is 17.68. The tax levy. The levy limit is the maximum amount the town can levy in a given year. So it's last year plus new growth plus 2.5%. The maximum allowable levy is the levy limit plus debt exclusions and overrides. Excess levy capacity is the levy limit minus the actual levy. Fiscal year 2021 levy limit calculations. The fiscal year 2021 levy limit is $46,875,534. The fiscal 2021 2.5% allowable levy increase is $1,171,888. The fiscal 21 new growth is $689,370. And the fiscal 21 Prop 2.5 override is 0. The 2021 levy limit is $48,736,792. The 2021 debt exclusion is $2,881,986 for a fiscal 2021 maximum allowable levy of $51,618,778. Fiscal 21, what factors drive the tax rate increases? Debt exclusions. Increase the excluded debt from the Auburn Middle School and the high school for the upcoming fiscal year. Demolitions, properties going off the tax rolls due to demolition from snow damage, fire, or other causes. Properties becoming exempt, foreclosure by town, purchases by exempt organizations. The fiscal 2021 growth trends. Residential growth is slightly up. Most stable growth, not subject to being skewed by individual properties. Commercial growth is slightly down. Industrial growth is slightly up. Personal property growth is up. This is the new growth 4-year trend. As you can see in the fiscal 2021, the residential growth was 161,000. The commercial growth was 102, almost 103,000, industrial 17,690, and the personal property was 407,754. Some notes at the bottom: the residential growth development was slow. Condo complex development are getting near completion. Personal property increases significantly. Commercial industrial growth are stable this year, primarily due to Reliant Medical construction completion. Newer projects are starting. Residential value percentage change due to revaluation from fiscal 20 to fiscal 21. The overall residential change was 1.34%. If we break that down to individual classes on the residential side for fiscal 21, the single families went up 1.5%, condominiums 10.1%, 2 and 3 families 3.3%, and vacant land and apartments were pretty much flat. Equalizing the fiscal 2021 rate and value change, the median single family residential price last year was $278,135. This equated to a tax bill of essentially $5,000 with a residential tax rate of $17.98 in fiscal 2020. If you have the same property this year in fiscal 21, the value is $281,910. That's the median assessed residential value. The same tax bill would produce a tax rate of $17.74 if you wanted to tax at the same amount. The overall residential value change for all properties due to revaluation was 1.3%. Is it going to be a vote on the residential discount up to 20% discount to owner-occupied residential properties? It shifts the burden from the less expensive homes onto the higher-priced homes and non-resident homes. It works in communities with large amounts of vacation homes or non-owner occupant properties to shift the burden onto. There's going to be a vote on the small commercial exemption. The final vote of the Board of Selectmen is for the Board of Selectmen is a commercial exemption. This will have no effect on the residential and personal property rates. Industrial properties do not qualify, but share the tax burden for this small commercial exemption. And the exemption goes to the property owner, not the business. It relies on the trickle-down effect. Be a vote on the small commercial continued. It's for business properties, all must qualify. The value of the parcel must be less than $1 million, and each business on that parcel must have less than 10 employees. The assessors must go through the list of businesses from the Department of Workforce Development and qualify each property by the businesses located there. The businesses not on the list must be DBAs to be qualified by the assessor. Small incorporated businesses must be on the list. Each year, all properties not on the list need to refile applications with the assessor's office. If it is adopted, it shifts the tax rate up to 10% by annual vote between properties occupied by qualifying small businesses onto the other commercial and industrial properties. Applications are taken after the tax classification hearing, and processing can delay setting the tax rate. Any exemptions not processed prior to the submission of the recap will impact the overlay account. This is an example of applying the small business exemption to Auburn. On the left, you can see there's a commercial value. If the parcel is valued at $250,000, it would normally be taxed at a rate of $22.43 per thousand, resulting in a tax of $5,608. If the small business exemption was applied to it, the total taxes would be $5,047, thus saving the parcel owner $561. We'll pick another one here, the $750,000. If it had an assessed value at that, then taxes without the exemption would be $16,823. With the exemption would be $15,140, saving the parcel owner $1,683. The exemption stops at $1 million. So on the last example here, If the parcel is assessed at $999,900, the normal taxation would be $22,428. With the exemption, $20,185, thus saving the property owner $2,243. Historical trends of the CIP split selected. You can look at the last several years, stayed consistent. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 was 1.2, 2019 was 1.17, and 2020 was 1.16. CIP growth trends as a factor has changed. Again, if we look down at the bottom of the slide, in 2021, there was 689,370 worth of growth. Residential growth was 161,037, and as a percentage of the overall growth was 23.36, and the CIP was 528,333, which as an overall percentage of growth was 76.64. Fiscal 20, cost to do business in Worcester County. We have some neighboring and abutting towns. As you can see, the tax rates here. Worcester and Auburn are the only ones to have split tax rates. And this bar graph is based on an annual assessment of $1 million commercial building. You can see that Worcester's taxation on that would be over $35,000. Auburn would be second, and the corresponding towns all have single rates in our law. Rate chart for fiscal 2021. At the current 116, the residential rate would be $18.06. The commercial rate would be $22.43. And the industrial rate, would be $22.43. The personal property tax would be $22.30. A shift of 115 would produce a residential rate of $18.14, a commercial rate of $22.24, and a personal property rate of $22.11. A shift of 114 would give a residential rate of $18.21, a commercial rate of $22.05, and a personal property rate of $21.91. The rate assumes, the rate chart assumes a 10% small commercial exemption will be granted for 2021. The impact of splitting the tax rate on the average property for fiscal 2021. If you look in this left-hand column, here is the breakdown of the classes. Here is the average value. Residential was $281,910. Commercial was $1.175 million. Industrial $1.427. Personal property $123,000. We are currently at the 116. Would produce a residential rate of $18.06. The corresponding average residential tax bill would be $5,091. The commercial bill would be $26,370. The industrial would be $32,029. The personal property would be $27,043. And these are the corresponding average bills with each shift. For each class, the residential 5114 on a 115, the commercial 26147, industrial 31757, personal property 2720. The impact of the shift change based on a 2021 factor of 116. Again, the average residential property is over here at 116. It's $22 more. The actual factor, if a 115 factor was adopted, would be $45 more to the residential. A 114 factor would produce a $64 increase to the residential. A 113 would produce an $84 increase. And if it was a single rate, it would be an increase of $327 to the average residential bill. Commercial bills at 116 would save the commercial owner $71. At 115 would save them $153. These are averages based on the median number. At a 114, the commercial would save $376. At 113, they would save $611. And if it was at a single rate, the commercial would save $3,632. The industrial at a 116 would save 86. At 115 would save $186 on average. At 114 would save $457. At 113 would save $742, and at a single tax rate would save $4,412 on average. The effect of splitting the rates on commercial and industrial assessments. Property A, if there's higher tax rate, it lowers the net operating income, resulting in a lower assessment. If there's a lower tax rate, then it's a higher net operating income, resulting in a higher assessment. Higher taxes generally have a negative impact on building values. Raising the tax rate lowers the assessment, lowering the actual tax dollar gain from the split, and discourages commercial industrial growth. The fiscal 2020 single-family tax bill. Here's a snapshot of surrounding towns, generally in Central Mass. And if you look at it, Westboro is on the far right-hand side. It's $9,775. You have Northborough in the middle of the chart at $7,900. Holliston, $8,800. Grafton, $6,920, based on an average single-family house being valued at $419,388 and a 16.50 tax rate. Auburn last year had about a $5,000 tax bill for the residents. This is basically the same slide as was just presented. It's just in a different format. And you can see on the right-hand column the average tax bills for each corresponding community. The average Auburn residential bill versus the state average. The state average single-family tax bill for fiscal 20 was $5,978. The Auburn average fiscal 2020 was just over $5,000. The fiscal 2021 Auburn residential real estate tax bill is estimated to be $5,091 at a factor of 116. Auburn home value trends. You can see that it's been trending up over the last several years. And in fiscal 21, the median price for residential was $281,910. This is an important slide here. I'm sure Ed Kazanovich, the assistant town manager, will touch upon this. The excess levy history, Proposition 2.5. Fiscal 21, we are projected to use 0 of this. You can see the historical trends. 2020, we used 1.7, at 2.5, 19.74. Fiscal 18, 1.25 of 2.5, and so on. What if we levy to the max? The property type, again, the residential median price is $281,910. The 2021 rate at 116 is a $5,091. If we levied that extra 7.2 million, the tax rate at 116 would be $20.99, resulting in a $5,917 average tax bill, which would be up $826. The commercial, we're at $22.63, and the current tax bill is $26,606. If we levy to the max, the commercial rate would go to $26.07, resulting in a tax bill of $30,649, which resulted in a average commercial bill up over $4,000. And this is the last slide, and it basically gives us a estimated tax rate. This is the CIP shift over here. And these are the corresponding residential estimated tax rates. 1806 at 116, 1814, open space is 0. This is the commercial estimated tax rate at 116 is 2243, at 115 is 2224, and so on. Industrial is the same, and the personal property 116 is 2230, and 115 is 2211, and 114 is 2191. So that is the conclusion of the presentation, and I will try to switch back over to the, okay. There, am I back?
You are. Thank you, Seth. That was a great presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
So now I'm going to turn to Town Manager Julie Jacobson and Assistant Town Manager Ed Kazanovich to see if they have anything that they would like to add before I move it on for board questions.
Through the chair, I'm all set. I'm going to defer to Ed if there's anything to add, but want to thank Seth. Just as you probably know, this is Seth's first year as our chief assessor, and he's done a tremendous job. I know this is a difficult and complicated topic, and I think you did a great job presenting, Seth. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for those comments, and Madam Chair, to the rest of the board. Seth, job well done and much appreciated. Seth assumed the duties of chief assessor under some difficult circumstances given what we've all been through. They were down a person for over 6 months, and they amazed me. You've done a fantastic job. You and Lisa, and once again, much thanks. A few comments relative to tonight's presentation that I think is important to get out there. Certainly, I think we all recognize the challenges and the struggles that all the taxpayers in our community are facing during this COVID pandemic. And we're happy to report to you tonight that we're not taxing 1 penny of 2.5, as allowed under the law. This benefits all of our property classes: residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. If we had levied 2.5, we would be taxing an additional 1.17 million on the tax rate for FY21. And just to put this in perspective, if we were to assume a status quo factor of 1.16, residential tax rate based upon the tables that Seth and I ran in advance of this meeting would show a residential tax rate increase of 56 cents. Now, when you apply that to the average median home of $281,910, residential taxes would go up $157. And the commercial rate would go up by 66 cents per thousand, or an average of $775 on businesses valued at 1.175 million. By comparison, by not taxing any portion of 2.5, the status quo factor of 1.16, residential taxes are going up $22. That's a net savings of $135. And commercial savings result in a total of $846 at a median property value of 1.175 million. That's in addition to the savings realized over the years by the board's continued effort to reduce the tax classification factor. That's very important to understand. Not only did town administration not utilize any portion of 2.5, we actually reduced our amount of levy that we're raising by $83,000. So that's additional savings we're passing on to all taxpayers. Once again, our residential values are up 1.34%. Commercial values are down 4.70%. Condos are up 10.10%. There's an expectation going into FY22 that residential values will significantly increase, given what we're seeing in the market today. Residential sales continue to be hot, getting off as far in excess of what the asking prices are when they put them on the market. Conversely, commercial industrial values is uncertain given the impact on some temporary closures and what impacts that may have on sales in their net income or their bottom line for the upcoming year. And my final comment, I just want to underscore the importance of the excess levy. It's projected to be at levels we've never seen before. It's going to be at $7.2 million. And most importantly, the town is not levied to the full 2.5 over the last 11 years. And by not doing that, we saved the taxpayers of Auburn $41.7 million over that period of time. So not only are we saving all taxpayers money by not taxing to 2.5, but once again, the board's continued effort to reduce the gap in the tax rate that results in savings to the commercial taxpayers, albeit we're seeing growth in those sectors because of the incentive for businesses to do business in Auburn, which ultimately gives relief to the residential taxpayers in the long run. So we do have a long-term strategy. We've been working on this for a period of time. We're proud of the fact that we've built up excess levy at $7.2 million and save our taxpayers roughly $42 million. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my comments. Seth and I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have, and I'll shut my mic off and let some other people chime in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Casanova. So next I'll open it up to board questions at this point. We're going to save the commentary until after we put the questions out and then move on to public comment. Do any board members have any questions regarding the presentation? Seeing none, I will open it up to public comment. I do have a few people who have signed up in advance. When you do speak, I'm going to ask you, for those who came in a little bit late, to please give your name and your address. It doesn't necessarily have to be your residential address. You can use your business address if you have an affiliation. So the first person I have signed up is Mr. Londrigan.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us this time to address the board. My name is Steve Londrigan, Chamber President and owner of Chuck's Steakhouse, 10 Prospect Street here in Auburn. Proudly being one of the longest standing businesses here from nearly 43 years. Thank you, by the way, Ed, for that information. That was all very exciting. Good to hear. Small businesses have certainly taken a huge hit during the pandemic. Although many businesses were able to take care of PPP stimulus money, please understand that yes, it helped, and we were all very appreciative, but 60% of that money was used for payroll. It was an effort to get or keep our employees off unemployment, but when you have employees working part-time, making $300 a week, and getting that extra $600 bonus, it was very difficult to get some of them off of unemployment. It was a serious challenge for many small businesses. Needless to say, the 8 weeks went pretty fast, and now we're going into 8 weeks on this weekend. Although throughout the pandemic, the Chamber was there to support our members and non-members on a daily basis, bringing them much needed information on available grants, relief packages as they became available. The Chamber also set up a website that enabled all businesses to highlight any specials that they were running during the shutdown and how they were safely running their essential business. We worked with each and every one of our members. Whether it was a financial hardship, we extended relief to them in the form of deferred payments or payment plans. As I went through these virtual meetings, I was never prouder of the group of people on this board. Right now, all extremely hardworking, extremely focused, very generous, Just a couple of examples of that is when our annual golf tournament was canceled, the board said we cannot go a year without giving out scholarships. So a letter went out to our sponsors and we raised $4,550 at our annual golf tournament that we didn't even hold. Again, all the money goes right back to the citizens in the form of scholarships and to our graduating seniors. I want to thanks to the generosity of our board and all of our business owners. The next example of our generosity would be the response when we heard that the Christmas tree was no longer had to come down. I apologize right now for using the word Christmas. I've never been the most politically correct person there is, but I used it anyhow. The board jumped right in and decided not only to replace it, but redress it with new stars and lights as well. As you know, the tree's been planted and looks great next to the fire station. We did all this while the chamber brought no revenue in because we were unable to do events. The only thing we were able to do is take membership dues. The list of small business generosity goes on forever, but I'm here to tell you that it's getting tough. We're looking at a minimum wage increase in the first of the year. Many of our businesses are down 20, 30, even 50%. Who knows if there's going to be another shutdown? One of our businesses, Virginia's going to read a letter later, one of our close friends and business owners in town is down almost 75%. But now, on behalf of the business community, I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for a lower tax rate in an effort to attract more business in town. This is going to benefit everyone. We've already seen businesses moving in from surrounding towns because of our tax, like Killeen Manufacturing, Prime Metals, Allegro, Curtis Industries, and those are only businesses that came from Worcester. More business means more jobs and more commerce. Business breeds business. We need to continue to narrow the gap. We've made significant movements towards a single tax rate. They've already brought new businesses into the town. We filled many of the vacant storefronts we had 10 years ago, but we need to continue that push like many of the other surrounding towns have already done. You know better than me what's on the horizon with a number of projects underway and the tax revenue that's going to be generated for the next year and the year to come. So please vote to continue to head in the right direction, sending the correct message to potential businesses, just like the ones I mentioned from Worcester, that Auburn is business friendly. I think a minimum movement of 2 points to 1.14 would be great, and to continue that momentum that we've already started. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm confident that you'll do what's right for Auburn.
Thank you, Mr. Londrigan. Next, we have Mr. Reisner.
Hello, all.
Go ahead, Mr. Reisner. Okay. Mr. Reisner may be having an issue with his microphone. While we're waiting for Mr. Reisner to come back on, I'm going to move on to Mr. Guardiola from the chamber.
Thank you. And I want to thank you all for taking the time this evening to let us address the board. My name is Alex Guardiola. I am the Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy for the Worcester Chamber and the affiliate Auburn Chamber. Again, I want to thank you. Over the past 9 months, we've seen a health and economic crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the lights of which we have never seen, probably since the Spanish flu outbreak in 1918. While some of our businesses have been able to survive by being creative and maneuvering the way they do business, the majority have not been so lucky. One of the hardest hit sectors in our region is our hospitality industry. They were the first to close and last to open. 23% of restaurants have closed for good across the Commonwealth. This is almost 1 in 4 establishments that will never reopen again. Some of these business owners poured every dime into their businesses. While the Paycheck Protection Program helped some of our businesses stay afloat in the beginning of the shutdown, businesses continue to report to the chamber that these funds received from the PPP have already been spent down, and if a second stimulus package does not come soon, they too will have to close for good. These business owners feel the walls closing in on them. They're concerned about meeting payroll every week, paying their rent or their mortgages, and of course they're worried about their taxes owed to the town of Auburn. The current hotel occupancy rate to date this year is 40% in Auburn compared to 2019 when it was at 70%. This industry employs a lot of residents and they too have felt the crunch during this pandemic. If there was ever a year that this board could help our small businesses with their tax levy, 2020 is the year. Many of our brick and mortar businesses have seen historic losses in calendar year 2020 with no end in sight. Further, while many businesses face significant revenue losses along with a delay on a second stimulus deal, they are about to hit with an onslaught of rising labor costs. If you'll indulge me for a second, I'm just going to give you some numbers. I think I sent it over, but I just want to, put them on for the minutes. But the Unemployment Assistance Trust Fund is projected to have a $5 billion deficit by the end of 2022. Unemployment assistance premiums are expected to increase $319 per employee in 2021, which is a 60% increase to employers. Healthcare premiums for small businesses will increase by an average of 7.9%, despite the low use during the shutdown. That represents an annual cost of $648 for individual coverage, which is about $8,800 per year, and $1,788 for family coverage, which is about a $24,000 annual cost. Further, the paid medical leave and family medical leave program will cost employers $1 billion when all is fully implemented, offering 12 to 26 weeks of paid family leave and 20 weeks of paid medical leave. In addition to the cost of the program, employers have to assume the additional cost of filling positions while their employees are out on leave. Moreover, the minimum wage is about to go up, 75 cents to $13.50 for hourly employees, which is an added $1,500 in full-time wages per employer next year, and 60 cents for the tipped employees starting this January 2021. Every year, the chamber argues that we must have a fair and equitable tax rate in order to compete with surrounding towns and municipalities who boast a single rate. While we must be sensitive to the residents, adding to our tax base and attracting new businesses with competitive tax rates will lower our collective tax amounts owed. Lastly, Chapter 65 of the Acts of 2020, more commonly known as the state's moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, has ended as of October 17, 2020. While some small businesses were able to benefit from the moratorium as the residents did, others did not qualify. The state's moratorium was not extended, but now the federal moratorium does become applicable as they will run till the end of the year. Unfortunately, the federal moratorium does not cover commercial buildings. This lack of coverage will undoubtedly cause small businesses to be evicted or foreclosed on. Every year, the Auburn business community is tapped for donations, sponsorships, assistance by the residents, and while there are times where they're not physically solvent as they would like to be, they're always just generous and adhere to the call and help the town because they see the value of being a good community partner. This year is different because of COVID. If there was ever a year to help our small businesses get it to the other side of this road, this is the year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Mr. Reisner. Can you check your mic, please? Let me know if you're here.
Yes, I'm on. Doreen, can you hear me?
Yeah, so if you could just give your name and address just for the record and then make your comments, please.
Marty Reisner from Auburn Industrial Development Corp., 48 Sword Street, Auburn, Mass.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hello all. I hope everyone is doing okay out there. Difficult times. From my perspective as being, the manager of an industrial real estate company in Auburn, we've been faced with several tenants that have renegotiated their lease terms for lower rates and for a lesser term. So that's very concerning for us. We've been able to hold our head above water, but as each tenant's lease termination date comes up, we keep getting leveraged for lower rates. And so I don't see it changing anytime soon going into 2021. So I'm hoping the town will keep the tax rate the same or lower it to help businesses in the town of Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking this evening. Next, I'm going to move on to Virginia Murphy. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Virginia. Check your, okay. Check your mic and I'm going to check. Ms. Cunningham, are you speaking tonight? I'm going to give it a minute to see if there's anyone else who is going to speak tonight. Virginia, you can speak, but your microphone is still muted.
Okay, you ready for me? Now that I'm
Thank you.
all
Just give your
camera
name.
all set up.
Yeah,
So my
if
name,
you, if you can just identify yourself because you're under Alex's name.
yeah, my name is Virginia Murphy. I am the Auburn Chamber Liaison. I work at 311 Main Street here in Worcester, Mass. I'm going to read a chamber member letter, as Steve Lodingen said, and I'll start now. Dear Chairman Goodrich and distinguished members of the Board of Selectmen, I am writing in regarding for the upcoming tax classification debate scheduled for November 9th, 2020. I'm asking that the trend, which began in 2006, of moving in measured increments toward a single tax rate, continue this year. Over the past year, HJM Photography and the Farmers Gallery has taken a backseat due to the COVID pandemic. In regard to HJM Photography, weddings have either completely canceled, changed their date, or cut hours that previously signed in a contract. Full-day wedding shoots are now employing. I changed their contract to 2 or 3 hours. In addition, weddings previously contracted to this year, oh, sorry, I apologize, I had to grab my phone for this one, are asking I change the date to 2021 or beyond, which blocks possible future contracts. Portrait sessions has decreased this year by approximately 80%. Commercial contracts have ceased. Farmers Gallery has been significantly impacted due to isolation precautions. The store has minimal foot traffic. People call for private appointments and showings due to the pandemic. This has affected day-to-day business by approximately 75%. But there are some things that cannot be controlled. Federal and state orders set in place for public safety. But there's something that Auburn can do, and that is to take some burden from the business community so we don't close our doors. Doors that may not be able to open back up when this is all behind us. As a resident, I have chosen to have my business in Auburn and appreciate the support we are given by town government. We respectfully request that the Auburn Board of Selectmen continue the momentum towards closing the gap in tax rates and vote to reduce the differences between the two rates. I thank you for your time and consideration of my comments. And if you have any additional, if I can be of any additional assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Respectfully submitted, Henry J. Montville. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to make a public comment before I close it to public comments? I see one other person, Ms. Cunningham. If not, I see no one else who is going to speak, then I will close the public comment portion of the hearing. I'll now move on to member comments. Yes, I will do it in a way, the way we do vote. So I'll now open it up to Mr. Berthium. We'll do it in alphabetical order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think the members of the chamber have said quite a bit as to how much businesses are hurting right now. I think that obviously it's been a tough year for everybody. I want to thank Seth and Ed for that presentation and for coming up with some good rates and keeping 2.5 at level and not having to use any of the 2.5 override. Again, I say it every year because being a member of the Chamber of Commerce and seeing what these businesses do for the town of Auburn year after year, going to a golf tournament and laying down $600 for a foursome with sponsoring a hole, and then spending probably another $100 or $200 on raffle tickets that go straight to Auburn scholarships. Mr. Wren can probably attest when he speaks to how many businesses get involved in the Auburn Youth and Family Services here in town. taking, banks being a major sponsor in our 4th of July celebration. You can just go on and on with sponsoring teams and everything else. So I think it's a great thing, and I want to thank the board for at least moving in the right direction the last several years. We're doing the right thing. We're moving toward that single rate. And I believe that we should be able to reach out this year and really kind of help out. I think the residents aren't feeling a super impact, and the impact that they are feeling is based on the fact that their values are up, which is a pretty nice thing to see. They were super high back in the 2007, 2000 to 2010 area, and and they're right back up there again. And so there's value out there. We have, again, the best of facilities for the businesses don't mind paying for, the best of schools, the best of police, the best of fire. One can make the argument that, well, Auburn does a lot for the businesses because of its location. And that's true. But it's also true that the location is very, very convenient for the taxpayers. If you live out in Paxton or live out in Rutland and you have to get in your car and drive 10 or 15 miles each way just to go to a different restaurant instead of the one-horse restaurant in town, you're spending $2, $3, $4, $5 a week just in gasoline alone. Residents of Auburn have the convenience of going a mile down the road and having 10 restaurants to choose from. People coming into town can stay right nearby. So the businesses, especially you look at the stores that are in the Auburn Mall, that they've got to be hurting, but they're sticking it out and they're staying open and being there for a lot of times our kids on a half-day school day want a place to go. And it's for the most part, I know we've had a couple incidents, but it's a very safe place to go. It's better than the kids hanging out on the streets. So our town is very, very, very convenient for the residents. And I just think that it's time now to, we should definitely make a positive step. I'm hoping that, I'm looking at the rate factors. I'm hoping for to jump to the 1.13. It still gives us plenty of work to do to get to the single tax rate, but the 1.13 is looking at like an $84 a year increase for the average resident, but it's really helping the businesses about $600, which is, I think, very needed right now. And we're talking about $1.50 a week for the average resident. And I think it's kind of going to be a good year to thank the businesses and make a decent sized jump in this, getting to this if we can go to 1.13, but getting closer to the single tax rate. The businesses that are out there, even when they could open, I noticed some of the restaurants were having to rent tents, rent chairs, rent tables. Even though they're open, and thank God they were, because it finally gave us some place to go and have a beer and a bite to eat. But that was all added expense. Their mortgage didn't go down just because they had to have a tent. That was an additional expense that they had to have. They had to have pretty much the same amount of wait staff, even though they could only have 4 at a table or 6 at a table, and every other table or the table 6 feet away from each other. So that's an example of some of the restaurants have gone through. You know, as far as the hotels in town, which is a big revenue source for the town, you know, they're hurting pretty bad. And to tell you the truth, you know, I work up at the airport. Worcester Airport is temporarily without any flights. So I personally am getting sent back to work in Boston because there's just no need for TSA people in Worcester. And even when it comes back, you know, we're afraid that, you know, people now are realizing, businesses are realizing that they don't have to send employees across country for a corporate meeting. They're realizing that they can do a lot, just like we're doing tonight with a Zoom meeting. So even when it, you know, comes back, you know, it's not like these restaurants, even if we can come up with a vaccine, it's not like these hotels and restaurants are just automatically going to go back to 100%. I don't know that they ever will, to tell you the truth, especially the hotels. So, you know, they've supported us immensely over the years, and I have a total appreciation for the residents also in town. And, you know, obviously looking at if we went, you know, single rate today, you know, it would cost the residents $327. And that's, you know, that would be silly for us to even think about that. But I think maybe $84 and going, you know, probably around $1.50 or so a week is something that we should be able to do without pinching the residents too much. And it would be a good way to you know, have a year to say thank you to the businesses and thank you for your support. And I thank the businesses for the Christmas tree and everything else, the scholarships, and to continue doing what they do for the town of Auburn. So, you know, I would love to see us go to a 1.13 and support the businesses this year. And that I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berthium. Mr. Carpenter, do you want to make your comments now?
I'd rather wait to hear from all members.
Mr. Liberty, are you prepared to make your comments?
Sure, I can do that. So every year, this is just the hardest vote that we have to take as a board, and the pandemic has certainly amplified that. It hasn't made it any easier on all of us. I'm happy that we aren't taxing to the full Prop 2.5%. And I know that we're talking about people who may be making more money on unemployment than they were working at their jobs, and that's caused a strain on businesses to actually find employees. But I think that only highlights a larger problem with the cost of living and highlights the issues that our residents are facing regularly. I'm a little concerned about seeing the increases in property values, especially because I think that's a trend that's going to continue into the next year. As people start to take advantage of really low interest rates, especially since the Fed has voted not to increase those interest rates in the next year. So if it wasn't for us not taxing any of the 2.5%, I don't think I would have supported any movement at all this year. And every year I do stress my personal belief that the town is better for the long term if we move towards a single rate. And I think that split rates really only benefit cities that have a real reason to you know, pull in businesses and kind of make them sacrifice having a larger rate, probably because of their locations. But I think we need to, and I need to stress that we need to continue to move slowly and make that transition conservatively, because even, you know, $40 extra a year to someone on a fixed income can be a lot. I know even we talked about that when we were, Mr. Carpenter had mentioned looking at some of the fees for businesses. Just maybe $20 here or there could help them out. And I think it certainly can apply to residents who may have been out of work or maybe stressed in other areas. So I wouldn't support going to 1.13. I would support holding the line at 1.16 this year or going down to a 1.15. But I certainly, I don't think that we can go beyond that this year after reviewing everything.
Thank you, Mr. Liberty. Mr. Ren?
Yes, thank you, Doreen. I just wanted, so first off, thank you to Seth. That was a great presentation. And thank you to Ed and Julie. This is, if we didn't have responsible town administration, then we'd be looking at taxing to the levy. So that's a win for the residents and the commercial businesses in and of itself, the fact that we're not taxing. As the numbers were, I mean, those are some pretty substantial increases that we would have had we taxed those amounts. I am very much committed to making meaningful steps to getting to a single payer tax rate. I think it's the right thing to do. This year, I am not committed to, going down to a 1.13. Lionel, you had made reference to the fact that, how generous the businesses are in this community to many organizations, Auburn Youth and Family included, and they are. I mean, I'm in a unique position where I'm president of Auburn Youth and I'm also a business owner in town. So I can really see both sides. But as president of Auburn Youth this year, I can tell you that the residents are hurting as well. So I take everything that was said by Mr. Lundrigan, by the members of the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, and I understand it. I hear you. I understand you. Believe me, I do. So I do support decreasing. I'd be more down to 1.15 versus going down to 1.13. But I am committed to getting meaningful steps to a single payer tax rate over time within my term. But again, making the jump, I've seen it firsthand with a lot of our residents that they're hurting as well. So I don't want to throw that increase too much on the residential side. Knowing this is it's a tough decision either way. It just is. So that's what I got right now.
Thank you, Mr. Ren. Mr. Carpenter?
I'll wait till after you're done, Mrs. Goodrich.
No, I have no comments at this time, so I would prefer that you make your comments.
Okay. So every year I agree. I've been on the board, with the exception of Mrs. Goodrich. I've been doing this longer than anybody. So I definitely do see both sides, and I know I've taken hits and knocks from committee members and members of the business community because of my stance that, my stance every year. I do believe during the election, I listened to all candidates, and all candidates said they weren't for raising the rates for residents this year. So I am concerned about that. We do have 762 people who are unemployed right now in Auburn. And a lot of the costs that we hear about, every community is dealing with that. The residents or the businesses in Oxford are paying all of the fees that the state is assessing. Auburn is not unique in that case. And we do need to look at businesses. I don't share the view that businesses and residents are equal. I think that's a false equivalency, personally. I respect everybody's opinions, but I am not in favor of moving the factor back this year because everybody is hurting, and I feel that we should be looking at what we can do from a business perspective. I think our fees could go down. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I do think we should be looking at that. I've asked for additional information in this presentation, such as the growth factor and about PPE, because as I said a month ago, I wanted to continue the conversation. So I'm doing that and continuing to look at things, and I'm just not there this year. So I respect everybody's opinion, but I'm not in favor of moving it back this year.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. So I have very brief comments tonight. We have the same same people on this call tonight that we generally have at tax classification. I will say, this is my 12th tax classification. And I am likely speaking at my last tax classification. As many of you know, I have said that, you know, I think 12 years is a huge commitment for selectmen. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And as Mr. LaLiberty said, this is one of the most difficult votes we take. I'm not going to rehash all of my comments from the past years about what an advantage it is to do business in Auburn, be it our public safety, our DPW and the roads, our response times. We all know that. What I want to talk about tonight is, I believe it is on page 34 and 35 of our presentation, because in doing this for 12 years, being a longtime member of the Worcester County Selectmen's Association, this is just unheard of. To have a town not use any of their 2.5. I mean, I have to take my time here tonight to congratulate town administration. You know, whether it's residential or business, right here, by not using any of the 2.5 is a significant savings for everyone during one of the most difficult years we've had. You know, in my real job, my day job, I deal with cases every day, whether it's unemployment, people who need SNAP benefits, businesses who need PPE. We're living in unprecedented times, frightening times, but the town of Auburn has addressed this head on, not just helping the residents with COVID and following the governor's guidelines, but again, to come forward with a budget that utilizes none of our 2.5 is just unheard of. I'm concerned about the future dollars coming from the Commonwealth. We have relied heavily, and I'm sure I will address it at my final town manager evaluation, but the sheer numbers and grant money that the town manager has brought in to assist the town in keeping our expenses low. I don't know if that money's going to be available this year. I don't anticipate that there's going to be a lot of extra grant money. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Chapter 90 money or a lot of extra Chapter 70 money. The money will be there, but it's not going to be significant. You know, I'm so proud of the work that me as a member of this board and all of the members, including the 4 other members here tonight, have done with these budgets, supporting the town managers, financial policies, I shouldn't say town manager, town administrations, because, you know, Mr. Kazanovich plays a big role in this. We've adopted financial policies. We've had tri-board meetings. We've done great work to be in the position that we are in tonight to address this crisis. I'm not prepared to move to the 1.13. I agree with Mr. Carpenter that there is an advantage to doing business in Auburn, but you know, it's been a slow move. I don't have the right slide in front of me. Some years we stay neutral. Some years we move it a bit. I've listened to the comments of other board members, and I'm really not sure where our vote is going to go tonight, but my sense it will move a little bit, or we will remain the same. But it's a tough vote. We're in difficult times. I thank the businesses for their contributions to the town of Auburn. I thank the residents for their contributions to the town of Auburn. And I thank town administration for the impressive work they've done on this budget. So if there are are there any additional board comments before I move to ask for a motion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Berthium.
seeing as though I went first, I'd like to add a couple more things. I took it upon myself this year, because I know sometimes you even yourself hear from residents, and you might have as well. So I took it upon myself this year to call several residents that I knew and just ask them, in a year like this year where everybody's hurting, would you be willing to spend $1 or $2 more a week, being $50 to $100 more a year to help out the businesses, being that the businesses probably have taken the biggest brunt of this, and unanimously the people that I spoke to said that they would, that they were willing to do that. And I did explain to them that this isn't a one-time thing. It's not like you're donating $100 to the business. It's reducing the rate to allow that $50 to $100 per year, but it's for future years as well. I also want to looking at the chart on page 30, which shows different towns, and you're looking at. I kind of look at several towns being similar to Auburn, and the ones that I look at as being similar to Auburn that have commercial, residential, industrial, are Auburn, Holden, and Shrewsbury are the ones that I kind of pick out on that list. And when you look at the 2020 single-family tax bill, you'll see that Holden is around $5,891, and Shrewsbury is $5,968. And what I was asking for before with the 1.13, and it doesn't look like we're going to get there. I don't have the board support to get to 1.13, but I do want to mention that if we went to the 1.13 and you added the $84 that showed, above this year's rate of 5,001, you're still, from Holden, you're still $800 less per single family than Holden, and you're still almost $900 cheaper than Shrewsbury. And again, you look at kind of comparing like towns. I feel like they have new facilities, they have new schools, they have even Westboro, but I think Westboro's too big a city to really compare to Auburn. But they have obviously a great police chief because he came from Auburn. But they have several Auburn firefighters, so we know their fire's got to be good as well. But I just see that we're still very much below that line on the average. Going back to the page 25 with the cost of doing business in Worcester County, being that we're at 22.37, I think the 1.13 puts us just under $22. And even being at $22, if you look at our surrounding towns like Millbury, Oxford, Leicester, towns that we abut, we're still $5 more per thousand above them. And so, and those towns, we're all in the same boat. And I think year after year, we obviously want to put residents not first, but we have to look out for our residents. But I think that, we really need to start looking out for our business, and I would appeal to anybody that's willing to make a movement. If we could at least go to the 1.14, which is about $19 more than the 1.15. So no need to tell me why or why not you want to do it. I'm just hoping that that would happen, and I'd be willing to make a motion to go to the 1.14 and see if I get a second, and go from there, maybe a second with discussion.
Mr. Berthium has made a motion to select the residential factor at 1.14. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Mr. La Liberty has seconded for discussion. Mr. La Liberty.
I just even, like I said earlier, Mr. Berthium, I just can't see going down that much and having that big of an impact on residents this year, especially looking forward with, again, thinking that we're going to see residential property values increase again in the next fiscal year. And we're certainly not going to be able to hold the line and not tax any of 2.5 next year. So looking at that coming down the road, and any other potential projects that the town might have coming, like Mrs. Goodrich said, potential loss of grant funding. It may just be $20 for the year, but that could still impact some families. And after hearing some of the things that residents are going through, I don't think I can support going down to a 1.14 this year.
Do any other members want to comment?
Yes, through the chair, real quick. Again, Lionel, everything you said, by and large, associate me with it, and I remain committed to that. It's just this year, given the unique circumstances we're in, and then some of the other things, when you know, Shrewsbury, Holden, they have higher property values. So I don't know that it's a one-to-one comparison when you look at a lot of those items. And our tax rate really, it's not horrible if you take away the long-term debt spending. If you take that away, then our rates really are pretty much in line with a lot of those other towns you mentioned, such as Leicester and whatnot. So I do remain committed to getting there. I just think going down 2 points this year, I think in future years, once we get back on regular footing, I absolutely support dropping 2 points in a given year. I just think this year is a little bit different given the unique circumstances that we're in.
Are there any other comments before I call a roll? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to select the residential factor at 1.14 by a roll call vote. Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
No.
Mr. La Liberty,
No.
Mr. Wren,
No.
and the chair votes no. So we need to take four votes tonight. We are right now on the selection of the residential factor. Is there
Madam
another?
Chair.
Mr. Berthium,
I'll make a motion that we move the factor to 1.15.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second to set the residential factor at 1.15. Is there discussion? Mrs. Jacobson.
Through the chair, just a matter or a point of order. I think you might have to close the hearing before you go and take the final votes.
Thank you. You're right. You're right. I had notes there and I accepted the first.
I know, and it's hard to do this, you know, on with the tiles of everybody. So I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure from a procedure. And I have to say, Sharon pointed it out. So
Thank you, Sharon. So, we will, I will first, just let me finish. We'll close the hearing and then we will take, just for the record, we will take Mr. Berthium's motion with the same votes, and then I will open it up for a second motion. But I do want Mr. Berthium's motion on the record. So do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion for Mr. Wren and a second for Mr. La Liberty. By a roll call vote to close the hearing, Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. La Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Wren,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So Mr. Berthium made a motion to set the residential factor at 1.13. Mr. La Liberty seconded that motion for discussion. The board had discussion.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
to be fair, as much as I would love that to be the case, it was to 1.15. And
no, Mr. Berthium, we need to do a redo.
the whole thing over again? Oh,
Yep, for the record.
okay.
So the first motion that Mr. Berthium made was to set the residential factor at a 1.13. Mr. La Liberty seconded that motion, and there was discussion on that motion. So I'm going to call that roll again on the 1.13, which I believe it was one in favor and 4 opposed. Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
I believe it was 1.14, Madam Chair.
The original was 1.13 and it was 1 for and 4 against.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'm going to say no again, Lionel, then. I heard 1.14.
Mr. La Liberty,
No.
Mr. Wren,
No.
and the chair votes no. Moving forward, Mr. Berthium has made a motion to set the residential factor at a 1.14. Mr. Wren has seconded that motion. We are under discussion for a residential factor of 1.14.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I think that also, everyone discussed the 1.14 and Mr. La Liberty, Mr. Wren, and yourself did not want to go to that 1.14. And so we did end up taking that vote. And again, I lost 4 to 1. So if you want to do that roll call again, you can for this. But I think the discussion was already made on the 114.
okay, so we have so by roll call vote on the 1.14. Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
No.
Mr. La Liberty,
No.
Mr. Wren,
No.
and the chair votes no. Is there an additional motion?
That's when I made the motion for 1.15. Mr. Wren seconded it. And I don't believe there was any discussion, but there could be because we haven't taken that vote yet.
So Mr. Berthium, will you make that motion for 1.15?
I'd love to. I'd like to make a motion that we move the factor to 1.15.
I'll second.
So we are at a residential factor of 1.15. Is there discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I did say that I would support moving down by 1 point, and I'll probably vote for this motion. I just want to, again, reiterate some of my concerns going forward and hoping that next year some of the trends don't continue and that we will be able to reduce the burden on a lot of our residents. And hopefully going up this much won't have too much of an impact on them. But thank you.
And I will just follow up on Mr. Berthium's comments that I too have spoken with residents, and residents have concerns about what's going to happen in the future, and they're asking questions about what's going to happen with my taxes with the public safety complex. Are we still paying for the school? What happens if we don't get any state money? People are very, very concerned about their future. And you know, I find myself in an interesting position where I've heard from residents about this in the past, where people who have been longtime residents, sometimes lifetime residents, who are looking to downsize. And you know, the market is great right now, but that means it makes it more difficult for people who are downsizing to stay in Auburn. That's all I have to comment. Are there any other comments on the?
Just two
What?
final points. for me, Madam Chair. For my day job, sitting where I am at 281 median value in Auburn, I just don't see it. I think we're going to see values, that base go up pretty substantially next year. And then also, it's a point that needs to be realized, is that a stronger commercial base in our community will help the residential tax base. So I will be voting for this 1.15, and I do think meaningful steps are, as we progress forward, is always needed to encourage our business community to thrive here in town.
Are there any additional comments?
Yes, I'd just like to also throw in that, through the board's good work and through the town's good work, I'm really hoping that, I was kind of hoping that we would have more done by now, but I understand everything it has to go through. But with the Julia Bancroft project and the Mary D. Stone project, I'm really hoping that we're going to have a solution for, like you say, these lifetime residents, that and hopefully it will happen, while our market is good, so that they can, number one, get a good rate on their homes, but also be able to stay in Auburn, hopefully with some of these fantastic homes or apartments, condos that are being built. So I think that we in Auburn have done an amazing job of looking out for our residents, and I look forward to continuing to do that. So that's something that if you're thinking to leave town, make sure you look at all the resources that we have coming down the road, because we'd love to have everyone stay and be able to afford it.
Thank you, Mr. Berthium. Are there any other comments before I call the roll? The motion is to set the residential factor at 1.15. Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
No.
Mr. La Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Wren,
Yes.
and the chair votes no. Our next vote is to set the open space discount. Do members need any information on this before we take a vote? Mr. Willard, if you could just let members know what this vote is.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
We're at the vote to set the open space discount. If you could just give a brief summary as to what it would be.
Yes, there is no open space in Auburn, so the board has traditionally voted no on this. So,
Are there any questions from Mr. Willard? If not, is there a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we do not adopt the open space discount.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carpenter and a second by Mr. Berthium to not adopt the open space discount by a roll call vote. Mr. Berthium,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, no.
this is to not adopt.
That's to not adopt the open space discount. So do I have to say yes to not adopt?
Right, the motion is to not adopt it.
Okay, yes to not adopt.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. La Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Wren,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. The residential exemption, Mr. Willard, if you could just give a brief summary. I believe that this is more for
Yeah.
areas.
The residential exemption shifts the burden within the residential class itself. It is traditional to non-owner occupant properties. It's basically for resort towns, seaside towns that has a large population of secondary homes. And the residents, the owner occupants, shift the burden to the non-owner occupants or the vacation homes. And that's summary.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? Is there a motion regarding the residential exemption?
Motion not to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carpenter and a second by Mr. Liberty. If there are no questions or comments, by a roll call vote, Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yep.
Mr. Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Ren,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And lastly, we have a small commercial exemption. Mr. Willard.
The small commercial exemption has been traditionally adopted by Auburn. It allows for a commercial property that's valued under $1 million, assessed under $1 million, and has a business or businesses on the property that have fewer than 10 employees to receive a 10% discount on the assessed value of the property.
Thank you. Do members have any questions or comments, or is there a motion?
Make a motion, we adopt.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carpenter and a second by Mr. Liberty. Just under discussion, I would like to comment that this is something that I've commented on annually, and I feel very strongly about. The small businesses are, you know, the meat and potatoes of our town. And today I looked at a couple of tax bills, and I was pleased to see that the small businesses that I looked up, you know, are taking advantage of that small business exemption. And I feel strongly that not only should we support this, but we should be looking at ways to increase it, be it the number of employees, increasing the exemption, or lowering the standard. So I fully support this, and I hope that we'll continue to support small business. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Ren,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That concludes our tax classification hearing. I want to thank everyone who participated. I want to thank Mr. Willard for an excellent presentation, and I want to thank town administration for those incredible numbers coming out of your office regarding our budget and not utilizing any of the 2.5 as allowed. Do you want to add anything, Mrs. Jacobson or Mr. Kaznovich? Thank you, everyone. I know there are still a couple who are on the call, but we are going to move on with a very small agenda. So we have no communications. Under Board of Selectmen general items, there is no gift acceptance, and there are no proclamations or recognitions. Under town manager items, we've already taken care of those. Do you have anything else, Mrs. Jacobson? No, okay. I was looking at my paper, didn't see your head shaking. We have no tabled items.
Sorry, didn't have the volume on. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. And just under Board of Selectmen member items, I just want to acknowledge that this Wednesday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. We have so many incredible veterans who have done so much for our country. And we certainly want to thank them for their service, celebrate for them for their service, but not just this Wednesday, but every day we should be thanking them. You know, some of the stories that we hear, you know, coming from our veterans, whether it's World War II or Desert Storm, they're just incredible stories of patriotism and service to their country. But I did want to mention one specific veteran who is a lifetime resident of the town of Auburn. He was our first full-time police officer in the town, and he is our oldest full-time police officer. He is turning 95 this week, so I thought it'd be completely appropriate to wish him a very happy birthday for his 95th birthday, and thank him for his service on Veterans Day, November 11th. And that gentleman is Mr. Dick Tobin, and pretty exciting, and we thank him. Is there anything else?
Happy birthday, Mr. Tobin.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Burke.
I'd just like to, say thank you to the board and thank you in advance to the residents. I know we probably don't get a ton of people that participate in these meetings, but we are here to listen to you. I tried to reach out to some, and we'd like to hear from you. But we thank you every day for being a resident, enjoying the town of Auburn, working the way you do, and I do on this particular day. It's always kind of a bittersweet day for me for all my friends that are businesses, and when you're going out to the store or you're going out to eat, please try to think of Auburn first, and even persuade your out of town friends to come meet you in Auburn and go out to eat and utilize Auburn facilities. That probably would make as much of a difference as us moving in a tax classification. Just think about, anytime I'm out of town, I try to make sure I get back to town on fumes so that I can go fill up with gas in Auburn. It's little things like that you don't think they make a difference, but they do. So little things like that to support our businesses really make a big difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Seeing no additional member items, we have the minutes of October 13th, 2020. Are there any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, the chair will accept them as presented. Is there any other business before the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Berthium. We have a second by Mr. Carpenter to adjourn. Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. LaLiberte?
Yes.
Mr. Ren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Have a good night.